Obviously, that was intentional, and I think there was some celebration afterwards on his part. Obviously, don't condone what DK did, but I understand. There's been a lot of crazy comments said my way over the years, and the truth is that would never happen face to face. That would, even some of the most hated people that hate me the most in the cities that I've played.
Shedeur Sanders is a grifter's paradise, period. Right? There are these people who, he said it after the game, a lot of people want to see him fail. There's these people that sit over here that if you just criticize everything the young man does, there's going to be people that gravitate to that because they don't want to see him succeed. Yeah. Right? Because they don't like him for whatever reason it is, and it's probably not even a real reason that should damn matter. Right? And then there are people over here that realize if you support everything Shedeur Sanders does, if you just say he's great all the time, there's going to be a swell of people that always support you because that's how they want to feel. For whatever reasons that are probably extremely valid, starting with his talent, starting with his family, starting with his father, all the things you love about him. There are these people over there. If you do that all the time, you got people that's going to always support you. But God darn it, don't be reasonable. Don't be logical. There's the people who are like, he was drafted, me, for sure. I thought he should have been drafted by the second round. I thought he was a late first round, second round draft pick. I thought it was bullcrap. Y'all was standing next to me when I wanted the Steelers to draft him. I thought it was bullcrap that he went in the fifth round. But I'm also smart enough and logical enough to realize he went in the fifth round. And there were people who, when he went in the fifth round, was like, don't treat him like a fifth rounder. Well, what the hell?
Obviously, that was intentional, and I think there was some celebration afterwards on his part. There are these people, and if you do that all the time, you got people that's going to always support you. But God darn it, don't be reasonable. Don't be logical. But what the hell? Aaron Rodgers just dropped a bombshell that's sending shockwaves through the NFL, and it's all about Shedeur Sanders. The future Hall of Famer didn't just casually mention the Cleveland Browns. While the league slept on Shedeur, watching him fall all the way to the fifth round, Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers are now eating their words as they prepare to face the very quarterback they passed on at pick 21. So, don't skip a single second of this video, and if this story touches your heart, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? Let's begin. Now listen, this isn't just another Aaron Rodgers soundbite that's going to get clipped, tweeted, and forgotten in 24 hours. This is different, because when Aaron Rodgers goes out of his way to put his name next to a young quarterback, when he chooses to speak on a kid's draft slide and his development out loud, that's not taking it easy on the rook. That's not Rodgers doing charity work for the next generation. That's a warning shot. And I need people to understand why. Rodgers is not the type of dude who throws compliments around like candy. He's not your friendly media quarterback who says the safe thing, smiles for the camera, and keeps it moving. Rodgers has spent his whole career being blunt, being petty, being real, sometimes to a fault. So when a guy like that looks at Shedeur Sanders and basically says, yeah, I know what y'all did, it hits different. Because Rodgers knows what it feels like to sit in that draft room waiting, watching teams talk themselves out of you. He lived that. Pick after pick after pick, with cameras in his face, everybody acting like it was normal, and he never forgot it. So when Rodgers mentions Shedeur's slide, when he actually draws that parallel, he's telling you something without even yelling it. He's saying, I recognize that look. I recognize that energy. I recognize what happens when teams overthink a quarterback. And the league does overthink quarterbacks. Every year, we act like the NFL is this perfect machine, like the draft is some holy evaluation process where the best always go first. Please, half these teams don't even know what they're looking at. One front office falls in love with measurables. Another panics because the quarterback has a loud personality. Another gets spooked because his dad is famous. And suddenly, what should be simple becomes this messy political game where narratives start driving decisions more than actual football. That's why Rodgers talking matters. Because he's basically pulling the curtain back and saying, you can lie to the public, but you can't lie to me. He's telling you Shedeur has been patient, working, growing, and that word patient hits like a brick. Because patience is rare in this league. Everybody wants results yesterday. Everybody wants the next CJ Stroud instant explosion. The moment a rookie struggles, the vultures circle. Bust. Not ready. Overhyped. But Rodgers is reminding everybody that quarterback development is not a straight line. It never has been. And here's the part that should make NFL executives sweat. When a future Hall of Famer publicly aligns himself with a young QB, it changes the conversation inside those buildings, even if they won't admit it. Coaches start watching the film again. Scouts start questioning their own notes. GMs start hearing that little voice at night like, did we mess this up? Because they know how this movie ends when you let a talented quarterback fall for the wrong reasons. You don't just lose a player, you lose years. You lose jobs. You lose seasons you can't get back. So yeah, this isn't just about Shedeur Sanders. This is bigger. This is about how the NFL keeps letting ego, comfort, and narratives override the tape. And now, the narrative is starting to crack. Because Rodgers spoke. And once the crack starts, it spreads. So let me ask you something. What if this wasn't a mistake that teams can laugh off later? What if this is the beginning of a problem for everybody who passed on him? They slapped a 5th-round label on Shedeur Sanders, and then immediately asked him to survive like a first-round quarterback. And that contradiction right there, that's where all of this gets messy. Because let's be real for a second. 5th-round picks are supposed to sit. They're supposed to hold clipboards, learn the system, clean up mechanics in practice, and maybe get a spot start in a meaningless Week 18 game. That's the deal. That's the expectation. But that's not what happened here. Shedeur walks into the league, lands in a situation that's already unstable, and suddenly he's not treated like a long-term project. He's treated like an answer, or worse, like a test, thrown into real NFL pressure, real NFL defenses, real NFL consequences. And here's where the hypocrisy kicks in. On one hand, teams and media want to remind you every 5 minutes, he's just a 5th-round pick. That's the shield. That's the excuse. That's the fallback. But on the other hand, the moment he steps on the field, they expect clean pockets reads, instant processing, perfect footwork, and mistake-free football. No grace period, no learning curve. No patience. Just results. Right now, that's not development. That's a setup. You watch the games and you can see it. The offensive line isn't consistent. The weapons aren't exactly stacked. Play calling feels cautious, one drive and desperate the next. And still, the expectation is that Shedeur is supposed to elevate everything around him immediately. That's franchise quarterback pressure without franchise quarterback investment. And the media doesn't help, because every snap turns into a referendum. If he struggles, see, this is why he fell. If he throws a pick, the moment was too big. If he looks uncomfortable, not NFL ready. But let him flash, let him make a big-time throw, escape pressure, show that calm under fire, and suddenly it's, well, the scheme helped him, or that defense was busted, or it's just one play. It's always something. This is the uncomfortable truth nobody likes to say out loud. Teams love cheap quarterbacks. They love rookie contracts. They love flexibility. What they don't love is admitting they might have misread the room. Because if Shedeur turns into something real, if he develops, if he wins games, then that means somebody else let him slip. And nobody in this league likes owning that. So instead, they hedge. They keep expectations vague. They call him a project publicly while privately judging him snap by snap. That's how you protect egos. That's how you rewrite history in real time. And as a fan, that's the part that drives me crazy, because we've seen this movie before. We saw it with Jalen Hurts, remember? Game manager. Not accurate enough. System QB. Until suddenly, he wasn't. Until the same people doubting him were acting like they always believed. Shedeur is living in that in-between space right now. Not bad enough to dismiss, not proven enough to fully trust. And that's the most dangerous place for a young quarterback to be, because every rep feels heavier than it should. They want him to be a project, but they're judging him like a finished product. And that tension, it's only going to get louder from here. Let's stop dancing around it. Shedeur Sanders didn't slide because he can't play football. Everybody in the league knows that. Scouts know it, coaches know it, defensive coordinators definitely know it. This slide had nothing to do with talent, and everything to do with discomfort. Because the moment you attach a famous last name to a quarterback, the evaluation changes. Not on the field, but in the room. Suddenly, it's not just about arm strength, processing, accuracy, toughness. It's about optics. It's about control. It's about whether you're comfortable with the noise that comes with him. And that's where this whole thing went sideways. Shedeur walks into the draft process with confidence. Real confidence. The kind you actually want in a quarterback. The kind that lets you stand in a collapsing pocket and still deliver a strike. But instead of being read as leadership, it gets twisted. Confidence turns into arrogance. Self-belief turns into entitlement. And the loudest part? It wasn't even coming from film people. It was coming from people who were already uncomfortable with his presence before the tape even rolled. Then you add the father. Coach Prime. Cameras, headlines, opinions. And now front offices aren't just asking, can he run our offense? They're asking, can we handle the attention? Can we control the messaging? What happens if this doesn't go perfectly? That's draft politics. That's fear masquerading as evaluation. Because if this was really about football, the conversation would have ended early. You don't accidentally throw for over 4,000 yards. You don't accidentally protect the football at that level. You don't accidentally take hit after hit and keep getting up without blinking. That toughness, it's on tape. That arm, it's on tape. That poise, it's on tape. They didn't doubt the arm. They didn't doubt the toughness. They doubted the noise. And instead of betting on upside, teams chose comfort. They chose quarterbacks who felt cleaner, quieter, easier to sell in a press conference. Guys who wouldn't challenge the room or bring extra attention if things went wrong. Because missing on a safe pick gets you time. Missing on a bold one gets you fired. That's the part nobody likes to admit. Narratives bury players before they ever take a snap. Once that story gets written, too much hype, too much baggage, too much distraction, it sticks. And every decision after that just confirms what teams already decided they wanted to believe. That's how you talk yourself out of talent. And here's the irony that always comes back to haunt the league. The same traits that scare teams on draft night are usually the exact traits that separate great quarterbacks from average ones. The edge, the swagger, the ability to carry pressure instead of shrinking under it. We've seen this before, over and over. Quarterbacks passed on because they didn't fit the mold, didn't sound right, didn't feel safe, until they start winning. And then suddenly, everybody saw it coming. The NFL has a long history of paying for that mistake. And the scary part? This one feels very familiar. This is the part of the story where frustration turns into fuel, where doubt starts working for you instead of against you. Because as ugly and unfair as this whole thing has been, this is exactly how legends get built in this league. Nothing was handed to Shedeur Sanders. Nothing. Not the draft slot, not the job, not the patience, and honestly, that might end up being the best thing that ever happened to him. Because development in the NFL is never about hype, it's about time, it's about reps. It's about learning how fast the windows close, how quickly defenses disguise looks, how one bad decision on Sunday gets replayed all week. And the quarterbacks who survived that process aren't the ones who were crowned early, they're the ones who learn how to sit in the fire without panicking. That's where patience becomes a weapon. Aaron Rodgers knows that better than anyone. Everybody remembers the MVPs, the highlights, the championships. What people forget is that Rodgers sat. He waited, he listened, he stewed. And every year he didn't play, that chip on his shoulder got heavier. By the time he got his shot, he wasn't just talented, he was ready, mentally sharp, emotionally hardened, dangerous. That's the blueprint. And whether the league wants to admit it or not, Shedeur is walking a version of that same path. Because every rep he takes right now, he's earning it. Every mistake gets magnified. Every good play gets questioned. There's no safety net of draft status protecting him. No automatic grace, period. He has to prove himself every single snap. That forges something different. It forces accountability. It forces growth. And you can already see the foundation forming. The calm in chaos. The willingness to stand in there and take hits. the way he doesn't flinch when things go wrong. That's not something you teach in a quarterback room. That comes from experience, from getting knocked down and deciding you're not done yet. This isn't blind hype. This isn't me saying he's already arrived. He hasn't. But the ingredients, they're undeniable. Arm talent, toughness, mental resilience. A chip big enough to keep him grinding when nobody's watching. We've seen this arc before. Guys written off early, guys told to wait their turn, guys who turn patience into power. The league loves instant success stories, but the real monsters usually take time to grow. And that's what makes this moment so interesting, because while everyone else is arguing about what Shedeur isn't yet, he's quietly becoming something, learning, adapting, sharpening the edges. This league doesn't reward patience often. It's loud. It's impatient. It chews people up fast. But when patience does hit, when talent meets time and pressure forges confidence, it creates monsters. And that possibility, that's starting to feel very real. Years from now, people are going to circle back to this moment and say, yeah, that's when it started. Not when the wins stacked up, not when the headlines flipped, but right here when it was uncomfortable, when it was messy, when belief cost something, because this is how NFL stories age. Loud. Right now, it's easy to dismiss Shedeur Sanders as a question mark, a maybe, a conversation. That's how it always starts. But if this thing hits, if he keeps growing, keeps steadying the chaos, keeps stacking moments instead of chasing noise, then this stretch becomes a reference point. The clip people pull years from now and say, look how blind the league was. You can already picture it. Draft rooms replaying old tape, not to scout him, but to justify why they passed. Coaches sitting at podiums getting hit with that one question they can't dodge anymore. Did you guys misread him? Was it the talent, or was it everything around him? And you already know the answers are going to be careful, polished, corporate, because admitting you were wrong about a quarterback doesn't just bruise pride, it exposes process. And fans are going to remember exactly where they stood. They'll remember who laughed at the slide, who called it obvious, who said, if he was really that good, he wouldn't have fallen. And they'll remember who stayed patient, who said, let it breathe, who saw the foundation before the house was finished. That's why moments like this matter more than box scores. This isn't about a stat line going viral. It's about trajectory. It's about watching a young quarterback navigate pressure, doubt, and expectations that don't match his draft slot and not fold. That's rare. And when it hits, it changes how teams think. Because if Shedeur Sanders works, if he becomes a real answer, not a placeholder, it won't just embarrass a few front offices. It'll force the league to look in the mirror. It'll challenge the idea that comfort equals correctness. It'll make teams rethink how much they let narratives, optics, and fear steer decisions that should be rooted in football. That's bigger than one player. That's how evaluation shifts. That's how blind spots get exposed. That's how the next generation gets judged differently. And no, I'm not saying this is guaranteed. This league humbles everyone. Nothing is promised. But belief doesn't require certainty. It requires awareness. And right now, the signs are there. The patience, the toughness, the steady climb instead of the flashy sprint. So remember this feeling. Remember this stage of the story. Because if this works, you're not just watching a quarterback develop, you're watching the early chapters of something people are going to argue about for years. And whether you're a believer, a skeptic, or somewhere in between, one thing's for sure. This story isn't done being written, and it's getting louder by the week.